Hello and welcome to another episode of Owlbear Soup. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Justin.
I'm the other host. I'm Rich. Trying to come up with a. It's the soup that's
It's the soup that,
full of warlocks.
the best seasoning for soup is warlocks, I've heard.
Mm. hmm Yeah, that special blend you get from their packs is. I mean, it's a lot of different flavors.
Oh man. Timing and everything, right? Yeah, as soon as I hit go on this, my note
Uh,
taking program decided, "Oh, now's a good time to update." Thanks, Windows.
I I don't want to be held full. That's awesome. Well, welcome to Theros.
Yeah,
I see our backgrounds are very. Uh, but what I don't know what the Parthenon is called in Theros, but still.
right? Uh so my background is actually from the Magic the Gathering, Theros setting, which is, I mean, it's the same setting, but it's imagery from those series of cards and stuff. So
Hmm.
totally cool, totally into it.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
in Theros. Meanwhile, Rich
Yes.
is someplace much cooler,
I'm just in
just in
Greece. I
Greece.
mean,
All right.
fewer minutes ours.
Yeah.
Good
So
night.
yeah, so that's clearly going to be the subject of today. We're going to talk about the new Theros book, but of course, as always, I want to touch on a couple of quick things before we dive into our story of the week. Um, so it was announced last week that Dungeons and Dragons is putting out the revamped, get it, version of Curse of Strahd, and
Oh.
yeah, so and of course doing the Beetle and Grimm's treatment, so Beetle and Grimm's treatment. So there's going to be a $250 version that comes out with updated content, because they are updating the content to be a little more, or to be culturally sensitive to the Vistani. Is and Yeah, it's going to be coming in with a bunch of cool stuff. I don't know if you got a chance to see this, but it's gonna be like,
No.
it's a Taroka deck is gonna be in there. There's like a Welcome to Barovia postcard, and and then everything's like, there's a bunch of like, they've broken the book up into, like, the multiple paperbacks like they do for all of these Beetle and Grimm stuff, and there's a really nice looking DM screen and handouts and all that jazz. So super excited about it. I lied. It's currently for pre-order for $359, not $250. Uh, that's the Beetle and Grimm's edition. But there is
Mhm.
the basic Curse of Strahd revamped. It looks like it's going to be $100.
$100. Yeah. Uh, Coming in a coffin. Is that true? Is the regular one in a coffin?
Yes. I don't know. I don't know which one
Wow.
comes in the coffin. I haven't. I haven't pre-ordered it or any of that jazz yet. So, but yeah, it definitely looks like it comes in a coffin. When you look at look at it on like Amazon.com or anything.
Yeah. Very cool. That's the picture I'm seeing here. I am excited for this. I do want to see a cool. I hope they made a cool new Taroka deck. That would be amazing. I want one of like very
Mm-hmm.
colorful. I love it. The poster map, good. I'm very curious if they grabbed some folks from the DMs Guild to work on this, because this has been a passion project of a few people on there in particular.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I didn't buy Curse of Strahd when it first came out, so I'm super excited to buy it this round. The
yeah,
revamped, revised version.
very cool.
Also, Warhammer 40K app has rolled out their subscription prices and how that's all going to work. So, once you download the app, you can sign up for their special version. It's $4.99 a month, and then you get access to the core rulebook as well as all of the current codexes. So, for those who don't play Warhammer
Oh,
40K, that's the core rulebook is about $78, $80, and then each army book, in order to play your specific army, those books are about $50-ish. So yeah, when you kind of break that out, and then how often the everything's revamped, I don't know, it seems like a good deal if you're looking to get into 40K.
yeah. Wow. That's nice. I'm glad they're making that easier, because it is such a hobby that is just so like such a high price point to jump into it. So making that easier and more accessible is great.
It really is. Let's see. And then the last thing in my notes is that we are going to be streaming tomorrow night. It's going to be a pretty fantastic
Yes.
stream. Rich, would you like to talk about
I
that a little bit?
I am so excited. We're going to be playing Honey and Heists, which is a oh my god! I got so excited to run Honey Heist with kids. I was very happy about it because it is a ridiculous system about you being a bunch of bear thieves.
Mm-hmm.
And as I looked into it, it's that system's a little too complex for what I was looking for, which is I want to tell you that we're going to play a game where you are a bear thief, and then 5 minutes later we're playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that game, adapted it, made it closer to a lasers and feelings style version of the game, and we got off and running. So I've been leading this game for 7 weeks now, and Monday when we play will be my hold on. Oh gosh, I did this in my head already. 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, my 20th time running this game. And my final time for the summer. So I'm pretty excited to finish it off. It'll be a good dessert after all the rest of it.
Yeah, no, it's really rad. I'm super excited. Wait, I just had a total space out moment. Yeah, so Aubrey and Laser will be joining us tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, where we will be playing some Owlbear Soup with the double clicks. It's gonna be good fun.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of exciting things, should we dive into Theros?
I'm trying to think if I have anything else. This weekend is Gen Con, so I've been trying to pay attention to things in the background, but I haven't really been in attendance. I've gone to a couple Twitch streams, mostly for Lone Shark Games. Yep. They did a good one on puzzles in D&D, and I am very excited. Not only because it was with a good group of folks, but they kind of teased an upcoming book, which should have some puzzle elements in it, which I have been waiting for because I've heard teases of it for years now. So they may finally be putting that in. I'm excited to see what in the world they do with it.
So finally, we're gonna get a puzzle and trap book.
Challenges, traps. I mean, it might be a new version of the Book of Challenges from Third Ed.
Oh,
so
cool.
We'll see. I have no idea. But next couple months we will have more for you. But it was so frustrating to hear it teased again and go like, just give me the book I want. This is like it's written for me.
Nice. All right, so as far as Mythic Odysseys of Theros, and
Moot.
This is my copy. Yes, it will be referred to as Moot on all of the forums. I think that's something that they need to take into consideration when they buy these books or when they write these books. It's like, oh, what are they going to call it on the forums?
Let's see. Can I make all my shine happen? There
so
we go.
Much,
yes,
so shiny.
Yeah. I love this book already.
Yep. So I'm coming at. So I guess top level, I'm coming at this book as a person who is not super into all the Magic the Gathering worlds like Ravnica. Like I had no association with it. Theros, I have association with it in that I'm familiar with Greek myths. But beyond that, like as a setting, as a world, as a place where fantasy stories happen, I don't know Theros. So when I'm talking about the things that I've seen in this book, I'm definitely going to be talking from a way of like, is this a D&D campaign that I would like to explore? Is this world engaging to me? Someone who's not interested in magic. And then on your side of things.
Right, we've talked about this before, and Ravnica was a magic world that I enjoyed, so that book kind of popped for me. I have never played Theros, so I'm coming at this from a similar boat. I can see the bones of Magic the Gathering in here, and I'll talk about that a couple times as we're going through, because I can certainly, I can point to those things. But I am also coming at this from a Greek mythology fan standpoint, and how well this allows me to play a Greek campaign way more than some Magic the Gathering crossover events.
yeah, and I think no spoilers, right? I feel like that's very much the conclusion that I'm going to come with this book is that where do I put my keyboard? I guess it'll go there. Is that at the end of this, I'm more likely to play a Greek mythology RPG than a Theros one, but does this book provide a good framework for that?
Yes.
And that's what we'll discover. So I guess the best way to kind of do this is take a look at the book and kick it off at just we'll highlight a few things in each chapter and then roll back at the
Mhm.
very end and give our final thoughts and chat as we are going through this. Please let us know what your thoughts are on these various portions of the book and what you think.
Yeah.
So, um, even before we get to chapter 1, there's the Welcome to Theros. And this,
Mhm.
I read this a couple of times, and it definitely gives that feel of a very very Greek mythology. It talks a lot about how your heroes are essentially champions of the gods.
Right.
You're playing Heracles or Hercules. You're playing you know the mythical characters that you've read about. Um, and
Mhm.
that's pretty interesting to me. I like the way that they kind of dig into it a little bit, dig into the different ages and that type of stuff.
Yeah, I like a lot that they talk about this myth. Like it's basically all the myths that we know from our Greek mythology stuff. But it's as if the book is written out of time almost. So the poems that we know pretend that some of the poems in there we don't actually recognize those heroes because they haven't happened yet. They're in the
Hmm.
future. And there's this idea that those you could be those heroes. So not only are you like just following around what these old heroes did, but you could be one of them and stand up on those same levels, which I think is very
Yeah.
cool. So they this introduction has these archetypes at the top, these great pieces of art like the vanquisher, the hunter, the protector, like the things your character is going to be doing anyways. And what if your character, you realize one of the poems about the hunter is actually about you? Like that's a cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. It's definitely. Yeah. It gives you that feeling like maybe the story that you're playing, like you said, is the past, and you are these
Mhm.
archetypes, and these tales will be sung about you forever.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's a really cool kind of device to set the campaign world in.
Mhm.
And you're going to see that a lot throughout this book, is that your characters are a step above, right?
Mhm.
They are not the chosen ones, because that's not really the way Greek mythology works, but you are the champions of a god. And it's interesting in that as you kind of read this book and dig into the way the gods work, the gods only exist because of their worshippers. They only exist they exist because mortals imagined them into existence, and that's what
Yeah.
gives them power. So as we kind of frame some of the different mechanics in these books, or in this book, you're going to see that a lot of them are ways of the gods to influence you, to worship them, to give them more power. So there's some kind of cool struggle ideas there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's so exciting. It's so interesting. At the same time, we've been playing a lot with kids,
Hmm.
right? And when we get to the faith section in D&D Beyond, there's like, oh, we're in our background. You can write in your faith. And they're like, what do I do? There's not a drop down. Who do I pick? What do I do? And my first comment is, unless you're a cleric, you don't have to put
Hmm.
anything. That is the opposite of this book.
Well,
Unless you choose to
yeah.
specifically, a deity is very important.
Yeah, you have to actively make the choice to not be a follower of a god.
Yeah.
So, and and then there's interesting things about, like, if you decide you follow one god and then you change your mind and you decide to follow a different one, right? So there's and these are gods that walk the planet, and they're jealous gods, they're
Mhm.
angry gods, they're so you right, it's
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
so let's dive into chapter 1, character creation.
Let's do this. There's so much good stuff in here. I'm so
So
excited.
good, so good. Yeah, go ahead and kick it off.
So the big thing at the start is that your character has a heroic drive. Like this setting exists, your characters exist to kind of push forward and do big things. Definitely, we're not talking about basements of
No.
rats in this game. Um, so at the very start, they dive into one of my favorite parts of the character sheet, which is that box that has your personality traits, your
Hmm.
flaws, your ideals, and your bonds in it. And they start with just saying you need to make sure those are big.
Hmm.
Like, make sure your ideals is something big that your character can really hold on to and dig into. That's very
Hmm.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ideals. are whenever you're rolling those, you're thinking of ideals to directly serve a specific god too. And if I remember correctly, forgive me if I'm talking, but I think there are ideals in the god section of this book that you can kind of choose from and add to your character to amplify this, so that you're
Absolutely.
working towards the same goals.
Yeah, you can have those so that you have those devotions. And basically, in the game, you can take the ones from your background, you can write new ones, doesn't really matter.
Right.
The ones that are provided are pretty helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But this says right here, like, change some of those. Just do it.
Yeah.
Just, feel free. Your bond, consider that your bond is actually because of a deity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was an urchin on the streets. I was running around and I was only saved because a deity showed up and saved me. And I owe them my allegiance or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, the gods have a very active hand in your day-to-day life. So when they do, that's a great role-playing platform for your hero, because you're playing heroes in this, right?
Right? Yeah, there's some room for, being a champion who is not fully heroic, but you're doing big stuff, no matter what.
Yeah, in the next one that I'm a huge fan of the idea of the tragic flaws. In the way that I read this and the way that I kind of understand it and how I started to picture it was, I was thinking about Greek myths and some of the different characters that we know of, and how they're actually tortured by the gods, and they're tortured based on these kinds of ideas, these tragic flaws. Narcissus turns into a plant and always is looking at the reflection in the water because they were so obsessed, right? So kind of that tragic flaw, and there's like Sisyphus and some of those others, and there's just so many, and I mean really, like,
right?
No, I guess Minos the Minotaur was not, but things like what's the one that I always enjoy talking about? He flew too close to the sun and his wings melted.
Oh, Icarus.
Icarus,
yes.
Yeah, you flew too high, Icarus. Like, that's a tragic flaw. Is Icarus, his bravada to try to take flight from the gods. So
I love that. I was looking at the Far Traveler the other day, and they have a couple in there. One of them is like, because I was out with this distant tribe, whenever someone sees me eat, I do it in this way they think is kind of barbaric. I think that's kind of the meat of that little flaw. And I love the idea that, changing that to, like, I have been cursed in order to, like, do a specific thing while I'm eating, that people still are like, whoa, what? And if I don't do it, there's a problem. There's one in there that's just like, I'm scared of being in boats, and because Poseidon will kill me.
Right?
Whoever sees me in a boat. It's a perfect, amazing flaw.
Right? I mean, of course the Kraken is going to get you.
Yeah. I can't remember the Poseidon of this world yet, but we'll get there.
Yeah, and and that's the thing is a lot of these gods are essentially the Greek gods themselves, and so it's like, of course I'm going to remember the Greek gods more because I've spent a lot more time with them. But someone who comes from magic,
may see these in a different way. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the Fart Raveler. Yeah, that's.
Oh,
thanks, Laser.
Ooh. Oh, we've oh my gosh, been watching a lot of shows that have fart moments recently, and it's pretty wild. Merlin, big couple two-parter fart episode.
Really, a two-parter fart episode.
Two-parter, yeah. I'm gonna bring that character back for more farts.
It was a two-farter.
Yeah. Oh. And then we were watching Umbrella Academy, the second season that just came out, and there was a very gross, well-timed fart moment.
Nice. We haven't watched that yet, but it's definitely on the to-watch list. I really enjoyed Umbrella Academy.
Yeah, me too.
So the next part of character creation, this is the part that I'm pretty excited about. I love this so much because I like, the part of the reason I loved 4th edition is because I like my heroes to start out as heroes. Like, I feel like if you're an adventurer, you are a cut above the average person in certain ways that allow you to be this adventurer. And these supernatural gifts are a great way to kind of represent that. It's so good. So good. So for example, like just kicking it off, like the first one, and these are powerful, right? You're not gonna
They
you're not
are.
gonna you're
They
not
are.
gonna see these in organized play unless they do an organized play specific for Theros. I could see them being given out as like special certs for special like big events, but regardless, like so we'll start with the first one,
Yeah.
which is Anvil Rot. So what this essentially does is it turns you, whatever character you are, kind of into a warforged, right? You have
Hmm.
advantage on saving throws versus poison. You're resistant to poison. You no longer need to eat, drink, or breathe. You're immune to disease. You don't need to sleep. So some of those things, and it's really kind of interesting. You do the Century's Rest. It's so instead of it, which creates cool imagery. So instead of like resting like a normal person, you then just stop moving. You're fully aware of everything that's around you, but you just stop moving, right? And that
Yeah.
it doesn't define what kind of pose. So
I love this because this game, the racial options you have are very limited purposefully. There's only 6 options,
mhm.
and so if you want to stick within those boundaries. So this is the only way to play a Warforged in the game, and of course it can be. If you want to play a Centaur Warforged, here you go.
Mhm.
You've got it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's really cool. And uh yeah, it's just and then it talks about things about your heroic destiny. So part of that is things like, okay, you get a little bonus on your death saves because you're hard to kill.
Yeah.
When you hit 0 hit points, you're not killed outright. You can drop to 1 hit point instead. So it's pretty powerful, pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. I love all of these. These are on par with heroic feats. It also mentions that if you would just prefer to have a feat at first level, feel free. Although I find that a little bit, it's like, theme it as a gift. They
Hmm.
they talk about how, if you want to get the skilled feat, I don't know, maybe a supernatural tutor showed up during your childhood
Hmm.
and taught you special skills, things like that. I like these better than feats for the most part, but you want to be mobile from level 1. That's a pretty heroic thing.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah, yeah. No, these are great. And then and then there's some of them that change the way that you um,
Hmm.
the way you interact with a thing called piety in this system,
Yes.
and it's really rad, and I'm a huge fan of it.
Yeah. And this next one we have to talk about that. But like the piety system is so cool because basically every level, every adventure, you almost will do something to support your deity and your score will slowly increase over time. You get new abilities. This is a high powered world. There's a lot of stuff you get.
Yeah.
Um, and so choosing, and we'll talk about some of the races. Some of the races choose to be iconoclasts and stay away from the deities. Um, well, this supernatural gift will help balance that out by giving you abilities as a few levels that are kind of like
Hmm.
anti-deity in
Yeah.
a sense. It's a
Yeah.
tricky one. But
Oop, hold on. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah. The
you're hopping over there. There we go.
yeah. Yeah.
I see that
Yeah,
picture.
like specifically the iconoclast is the one where you're kind of anti-deity, and I think that's cool. I think that's cool that there's an option there. The other one that kind of has that option is the oracle, where
Yeah,
your piety as you grow up gives you more oracle powers, and yeah, and I just love that.
yeah,
So
very very cool.
yeah, so
Um,
I just put up some art.
yeah,
This is art from the book, and this is the heroes and lifelong companions, Kainos and Tiro, who founded Metris and ruled as its first kings, plural.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
fantastic.
This picture's. I saw this and I like freaked out. I've been looking at this on D&D Beyond and it doesn't have all of the artwork all the time. I know that this is from there.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm skipping around. I just missed it. This artwork is so cool. I was thinking about it and just imagining the D&D books that I grew up with,
Hmm.
and they would never, just seeing how far they would never have dared to put an image like this in that book. I love that this is right. This is page 15. This is so cool. Just makes me happy about what D&D is up to and being, more progress minded.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's really cool, and there's a whole myth of the first kings of Melitus in here. It's so yeah, like making it canonical, like as part of the system, and it makes a lot of sense for Greek, because if we know anything about ancient Greece, it's like those they didn't have the same hangups we did. So
Yeah, yeah. And this is definitely, yeah, the hand on the back is so
yeah,
awesome. This isn't just like a light image. This is, no one's going to be tricked thinking these are just two kings who hang out together.
no.
And I love it from the myth. I also love that they were chosen. Like we'll talk about the different places, but Meletis is kind of the Athens
Mm-hmm.
of Theros, and so they were both chosen to be these first kings as well. So that's awesome as these just like super social characters in this world. It's great.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Oop, I lost my next bookmark.
Don't touch my hair, Dave. They're taking the picture. Oh my gosh. Yeah, these other backgrounds are really cool. These other gifts. Nyxborn. Nyx is kind of the realm of the deities. It's our Mount Olympus. And so when you take that one, you can shroud yourself in a cloak of stars. You look a little bit different because you are kind of like a fragment of divinity. So I don't know if your eyes are black or is starries or something else that makes you look interesting and strange. Again, this is like tweaking the races in the game to get a whole lot more options and cool powers. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. And then one little sidebar about all these things too is what you can do is if none of these really fit your character, there are options to kind of look at the idea of different feats that are available in the PHB and see if you can turn those into these supernatural gifts. Like for example, it's like I studied with a supernatural tutor, and then you start with the skilled feat, right? I bathe in the waters of a mystic river that left my skin resistant to harm and glittering with starlight. You get the tough feat, right? Yeah. I think that's great. I think that's a great way to kind of and I think I talked a little bit about this is using feats as a tool to help advance the story too. Like I had a character death recently, and they came back, and part of their resurrection was they gained this additional power from their patron, and they got the feat. And so now, in Theros, you start out level 1 already as blessed by the gods or your god, and you could kick off with one of these awesome feats.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, they're so good. I just love playing with these additional rule sets. It's a lot of fun. Like it's a cool extra layer, and I think they've done it really well here.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, and I don't know how well you remember this, but back when D&D Next was kind of being touted, and Monty Cook was the lead designer, they were talking a lot and looking into the idea of making 5th edition, which was D&D Next then, very modular, where you would buy the base book and it would be the very basic rules, and then you would get modules to add on top of it. I feel like this book is doing a great job at kind of getting that modular idea and making it accessible in a way that's fantastic, right? These are additional rules, including when we get into things like piety and some of the other odds and ends in this book. They're extra systems to enhance your game. And that's kind of going back to the original idea behind D&D Next.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's so good. So yeah, this is almost our, the starting level of our epic Destiny book,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Which I love. I love. Are you ready for races?
I am, and I'm super excited and super interested in the fact that races, as diverse as people are in Theros, there's only 6 races available. That's it.
Right. And here is one of the few moments that I see Magic the Gathering in this game, honestly. Yeah. Because we have humans who can be anything, but Magic's based on 5 colors, 5 land types, and there are 5 other races to go with them. So we have centaurs, definitely our green magic there. Leonin, lion folk, white magic. Yep. Minotaurs, who have to be black magic. They are infamous for bloodthirstiness, right? They have our death and decay bits to it. Tritons,
blue,
definitely blue. Maybe blue-black. They get some, it kind of depends. And that leaves satyrs. I always say satyr. I might be satyr. I don't know.
I think I say satyr as well.
Okay, cool. To be red, which red is like our forces of destruction and direness. I never see Puck quite as destruction-based.
Yeah, well, and for me at least, when I was playing red, it was always like a lot of goblins. And when I saw that, I saw the chaos there, and I think that's kind of appropriate for the chaotic nature of the satyrs.
Right. They're all about the revel.
yeah. They're just there to instant gratification. Let's have a good time. Let's party it up. And who cares, right? But Yeah,
Exactly.
I do find this interesting, and um, aside from humans, the races in the player's handbook are unknown on Theros unless they're visiting from other worlds. I like that
Yeah.
wording. Um,
Right.
we also had talked recently about restricting. I have an itch on my knee. That's weird. Uh, about restricting options for our players to kind of help focus the game a little bit. And I think this is
Mhm.
great. I think this is a great way to focus a campaign. Is like,
Yeah.
on this world, sorry, there's no dwarves. And
Yeah.
then I would say, oh, this is the only campaign setting I ever want to play. So we're good.
Right. Your classic, Legolas and Gimli running around seeing who shot the most baddies. Like none of them exist on this world, and
Right.
they can't. Yeah, that's another moment with like the planeswalkers, right? I make my deck. Maybe I want to throw in a card from Kamigawa to build up my Theros deck or something.
Mhm.
But yeah, leave it out. Leave it out.
Yeah.
Play in the block. Just play Theros.
And in part of and one of the things to kind of consider when you're looking at these races in the restrictions is that we're going to see the satyrs and the leonin and centaurs. Well, yeah, I think those three are new. No, satyrs were in Volos,
Just
so it's just
no, Satyrs and Leonin. Yeah, are the two
yeah,
new ones. They're the only ones that show up on D&D Beyond
yeah,
as this specific.
yeah, and then and so well, yeah, and then centaurs and stuff. But these are all powerful races. Already,
Yeah.
right? These are some of the top tier races of the races in the various books, and these are just like the standard races. So it creates already a more powerful, just everything, right?
Mhm.
So
Yep. I've been seeing these in action a lot with kids. So first up is centaurs, and I want you to imagine a centaur paladin for a second, racing forward, getting bonuses to strength and wisdom, right? Racing forward, charging across the battlefield,
mhm.
with a speed of 40
Yep.
feet, um, racing in and attacking. Anytime that you, let's see, yeah, if you move at least 30 feet straight toward a target and then hit it with a melee weapon, you can immediately follow that with a hoof attack. So you rush in, charge with your sword, then like spin and hit with your back hooves, and both of those are melee attacks, so you can smite on both of them. This happened to me during week 4 of the Academy of Adventures, and my
Nice.
zombie died very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of the centaur. In part of the oh, I lost my page for a second, but part of the reason I'm a fan of them is that they are not humanoid. I
Yeah.
like that they have taken that away, and I haven't dug too much into like helpful or harmful spells. But looking at them, there might be some options where, like, if someone chooses to dive in with one of these characters, it's like, ooh, well, that doesn't work that way because you're not a humanoid, you're Fey, or oh, hey, look,
Right.
that's gonna affect you too because you're Fey, right? It creates an interesting complication that's not necessarily I'm going to pound on this character because they're playing a powerful race type of situation, but more of a let's do something fun and interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I love that, your cleric who has hold person memorized
Mhm.
is just not going to be able to cast it on some of these characters. But what is the one? Protection from good and evil, I believe,
Mhm.
is going to deal with fey creatures. So
It
yeah,
does.
I was just looking up a couple.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and that's the one I was thinking of. I forgot if it had said Fey in there or not, but that's awesome. Cool. And then yeah, and so centaurs. We're all familiar with centaurs. Leonins, I believe, are the most different, the newest of the races that kind of
Mhm.
some folks may not be as familiar with the idea behind. But they're kind of the strength version of the cat race that now. Oh man, I am having
The
the
tabaxi. The
tabaxi.
tabaxi.
Yeah, I could remember the axi part, but it was like, no, it's not the axes. No.
Right. The tabaxi, I'm always a little depressed by because, again, their claws, they are a dexterity based race, but their claws have to be strength based.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, we get the right synergy here. So this is a character that's going to enjoy using their claws, even though that's kind of just an extra bonus thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan because they get this daunting roar. They actually get a lion's roar, and I love it. It's a bonus action. They blast it out. Creatures of your choice within 10 feet of you make a save, or they are frightened of
Mm-hmm.
you until the end of your next turn.
Yeah. Yeah, those are pretty solid. And then of course they brought back the Minotaurs. Minotaurs are exactly the same as out of Volos, but it's just but they've changed like oh no, it's not Volos. They were in Ravnica. And
Mhm.
they just kind of changed the background to fit the setting, but mechanically it's very
Yeah.
similar. In fact, I think it's exactly the same. Um, yeah, and the background is very interesting. So I'm
Yeah.
totally into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, I love the Leonin because they're also this race that they're up in the plains. They're the ones who are typically iconoclasts. They don't follow the deities all the time. That's a big thing in here. So that might be one place you want to like vie away from piety and make a character like that. Of
Yeah,
course, they could certainly be pious just like anyone else.
absolutely.
But they're fun.
Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, we have the Leonin, we have the Minotaur, we have the Satyr. Um,
Hmm.
Satyrs.
Oh, satyrs, yes. They get charisma and dexterity bonuses, and this is just like I can't help but make satyr warlocks. That's all I want.
Oh man, I think they're in my head. I'm now like they're clearly bards.
Oh, I mean, yeah, yeah.
Is all I saw. I hadn't even thought about warlocks, but I'm just clearly like everything about them screams to me like, oh well, it's time to party. Let's be a bard.
Yep. I'm gonna party, and at some point, I'm gonna hit you with my horns. I'm just gonna smack you, and I'm gonna headbutt you.
Exactly.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Um, they get magic resistance.
Yes.
They just get advantage on saving throws against spells and other effects. Like that's huge.
It's super strong, but it's also super. It's a super strong setting, so let's go for it. I do love
Yep.
Reveler. Just the name of it, Reveler, and Mirthful Leaps. Both of these, just like the name of these abilities, are fantastic. Mirthful Leaps, you get some extra distance on your jumps, based on a die roll. In Reveler, you just get proficiency in performance and persuasion, but
Yeah.
it's just and a stringed instrument or musical instrument, and it's just fantastic. It's fun. It's a fun race.
Yeah.
So, and then Tritons are solid. I do the thing I like about Tritons, and I wanted to point this out, and I didn't pull up any images to show, so I'm gonna take a picture. But like, I mean, those
Mhm.
Tritons are pretty awesome looking.
They really
Like,
are. Yeah, they're
I'm
fierce.
a big fan. Like they look like very interesting creatures. They don't look like humans who live underwater. They look like their own kind of
Yeah.
species.
Right. I like that a lot. I also like that because the number of races are so limited, and one of them is an underwater race.
Mhm.
Like your characters are going underwater. It's gonna
Yeah,
happen.
and that's something I definitely noticed throughout the book is there is a lot of talk about underwater, right? There's a lot of talk about seafaring. There's a lot of talk about underwater adventures, that type of stuff. So
Yeah.
having a Triton in your party might be a good call.
Yeah.
So when we talk about satyrs, I feel strongly like the College of Eloquence is not the best fit for them, but I do,
No. No.
but I am a huge fan of the College of Eloquence.
It's so good. It's amazing. I really, really like
Yeah.
it. Right. Not just their ability on persuasion and deception checks to anytime you roll under a 9, you just call it a 10, call it a day.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. It means your minimum check is a 15 probably.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But no, for me, it is their 6th level ability to whenever they use their bardic inspiration, they give it to you, and if you decide to use it on a check and you fail, you don't lose the inspiration.
Yeah.
Which is I see people holding on to that die for so long, just like I might need it. I don't know. But like this is just like no, have fun, roll it.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I really like their 14th level ability, Infectious Inspiration, because it also encourages you to use your inspiration, right? Because once you use your inspiration, it then inspires another ally within X distance. And so basically you're getting 2 uses of your inspiration for the price of 1.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
so good. It's such a cool, strong support class. You're not going to get all the glory. You're not going to be the one causing the killing blow, but you know what? You're going to be the one who gets that person there. So
I had a kid playing a bard recently, and they love those moments when bardic inspiration is the thing that gets someone across a line. And I this just makes that happen so much more often. I love it.
And then we have a new Paladin Oath, the Oath of Glory. And this thematically is fantastic. I feel
Hmm.
like everything, all the abilities about this scream like that kind of like athlete, which is a new background. This athletic paladin-esque hero, and yeah, it's just you feel very Heracles or Hercules,
Hmm.
like peerless athlete. You can use a bonus action to channel divinity to augment your athleticism,
Oh
and
yeah.
then
Oh yeah.
it and then for the next 10 minutes you get bonuses to your all your strength and dex skill checks. It's fantastic. It's so
Yeah,
fun.
it is. And I also love that a lot of this, their glory supports their friends at the same
Mm-hmm.
time. Like their other channel divinity, uh, this is like a lot of actions in one turn. You hit, you decide to make it a divine smite. You decide to channel divinity based on that, and you get to heal people, give people some temporary hit
Yeah.
points. That's awesome. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it is a lot to happen on one turn, that might turn some folks away. But
Yeah, I'm super into it. And then there's a new background that's introduced. It's the athlete. Backgrounds aren't make or break type of things, but it's just kind of a very cool, flavorful background for this kind of setting. Being an
I
athlete is
love it.
very very lines up very well.
Hmm. I love their feature is that you might have a fan.
Mhm.
And it's like a 50-50 that someone will help you out.
Yeah,
I love it.
maybe.
And maybe. And they also have a flaw that I love. I just have to point it out. Any defeat or failure on my part is because my opponent cheated. And
Hmm.
that's a flaw I would love to play.
Also, I as far as their flaws, and and when I look at these flaws, I start thinking, oh, how could this be a tragic flaw, right? I must be the
Mhm.
captain of any group I join. Like, I could definitely see a great tragic flaw storyline with that.
Yeah, right. Because we do have a God of Victory coming
Mm-hmm.
up. Like that's, or else I will catch someone's wrath.
Mm-hmm.
I love this. So this book is set up in our Gazetter format, very similar to the Ravnica book
Mm-hmm.
or the Eberron book. And so from personal stuff, we move on to like the driving forces of the world, whether that's dragon marked houses or the 10 guilds, or in this case, the
Right.
gods.
Yeah, and so we're gonna get into piety, which is very similar to renown, which is originally presented in a DMG as a way of kind of tracking how your character has interacted with this other power. Ravnica took it a step further, focusing on the various guilds. And then I feel like Theros is taking it yet a step further in that you're getting real tangible benefits for being pious to this
Yeah.
to this particular god. And one of the fun things about this is you pick your god and you start out with one piety point right off the bat. You pick your
Hmm.
god. If you at level 10 you had 30 piety points by level 10 and you decided, you know what, time to change gods, you lose all those other ones and you start back over with one with the new god,
With one.
right? Which I think is interesting. And for me, like if I were really getting deep into this game, I think that
Hmm.
god that stripped that 30 piety away from you as you switch gods, probably not going to be super happy with you. Probably going to
No.
be someone you have to deal with later.
Right. And that is, I mean, that is interesting as you mentioned that. It's worth saying that this game kind of assumes that the deities are going to be telling you what to
Hmm.
do a lot. You're going to interact with them often. There's all sorts of omens and oracles.
Hmm.
And even more, like they have to mention, and we'll talk about it later, like they have to mention, hey, don't force your players to do everything you want them to do. They do have some free will, but it's like some.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of, if you don't do that, that god's going to come beat you up. Like,
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, they were talking something a little bit like there is the strand of fate, and everybody is on that strand, so they're always following fate. But champions, which your heroes are, can affect the flow of fate, which changes things. And so, being a hero, you're walking that strand and adjusting that strand, or you're giving into it, right? You're giving into fate. But
yeah,
but yeah, no, it was just kind of an interesting idea of how fate plays into this.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fun. So I love this. It goes through all the deities. There's good 4-page or 3-page spreads for all of them.
There is.
Talking about their relationships, their abilities, what they're up to,
Hmm.
what their myths are like, and then also going through the piety benefits that you get, who usually champions these deities, and what their favor might look like. It's
Yeah,
cool.
and and not digging into each god, but giving an idea of in general what to expect whenever you choose one of these gods as your patron. Um, so for a Theros, it's usually lawful, sometimes evil. That's kind of the alignments. This is the first one in the book, so not a big spoiler. I just wanted to use this one to highlight. So you get some things. If your character starts out at level 1, you may have the favor of a Theros, and gods tend to bestow gifts on characters with their favor. So has a nice little cool chart that it talks about why a Theros might, or yeah, Atheros might favor you. So the first one, a family member died, bringing you into the world. Well, that's appropriate because they're the god of death. Whenever you look, an interesting mechanical thing is earning and losing piety. So, providing coins and overseeing the burial rites of those slain during tragedy, you could receive piety for that. On the flip side, denying a dying person their final rites, well, that you could lose piety for, because that's kind of the opposite. And as you go through different levels of piety, you get different benefits. You get those benefits at 3 piety, 10 piety, 25 piety, and 50 piety. So once you hit 50 piety for this particular god, you can increase your intelligence or wisdom score by 2, and also increase the maximum of that score by 2. So you can break that 20 gap, or that 20, the 20 maximum that D&D set. And before, really, the only way you could do that was through use of being a barbarian, right? There might have been a magical item here or there, but barbarians were the only one who could break that ceiling.
Yeah, which I love. And so you can almost look at these piety, numbers as a number of adventures, right? So that first one you get after maybe 3 adventures, and for most of these, it's a first or second level spell ability. So this is rampant power up.
Yeah, and specifically in the book, they mentioned that ideally your characters would receive at least 1 point after each session. So thinking about that, that is a lot for the DM to keep track of. I would almost, if I had the right group and I was running this, I would almost have a wrap up and I would do it by adventure or milestone, at each milestone maybe, right? Instead of just at the end of each session. And then they would write or summarize it. I wouldn't make people write it, but if they did, that'd be cool. But summarize an epic poem, right? So there was an epic poem written about my character, talking about the deeds of when I rescued the goblin orphanage from the torrential downpour, when I did this, and this is how my god probably looked upon that, and then I would reward piety that way. Just because it's if I have 5 characters in the group and they each have 5 different gods, it's going to be hard for me to keep track of who's ticking off those boxes of piety.
Absolutely.
And so that's how I would handle it. But if all the characters are following the same god, then great. Then you don't have to really worry about that too much, right? So
yeah. And that's another thing it mentions is when you build this campaign, why are these people together? Even the adventure, the short one that they have in here, assumes you're all together by circumstance, and then an omen hits all of you, and you're the only ones to see it. So of course you have to carry it out because you'll be worried about the god who sent the omen if you decide to ignore it. So it's definitely you meet each other as you're going, and circumstance draws you onward.
Absolutely.
If you're all the same, if you're all the same deity, that's way easier,
right?
Can I talk about one deity? There's one I love in particular.
Yeah, definitely talk about one deity.
Phoenix. So Phoenix is the god of deception. And one of the weird things about this world, we in the Greek mythology, we have Euripides, right? No, Orpheus. There we go. Coming back from the dead.
Yeah.
This world assumes that there are some people who got out of the underworld and returned to the living world. And Phoenix is the first one of them. He's the first of the returned. Characters who are returned from the underworld, rather than coming back, they lose their memories entirely. Their memories become eidolons, self-sufficient monsters in the world. And the returned, they end up coming back with this gray skin and this featureless face, except for a pair of black lips. And so they all wear masks to hide that. And Phoenix is the first one of those, and this now huge trickster god trying to mess with everybody else. So of all of them, kind of the easiest villain, I suppose. I mean, that's hard to say. There's a lot of any of the Greek gods
Yeah.
could be a villain at any time, but it's one that kind of I think is going to drive a lot of stories because the returned can easily be a an undead style enemy force, and there are also cool stories to be told. Multiple death deities hate Phoenix and wish he would stop returning people from the dead. So it's a very interesting character and story that I personally think is really fun.
Yeah, and in moving us along just a little bit, the next chapter is talking about the realms of gods and mortals, and there's an entire section talking about, after death, right? You can adventure into the afterlife with these characters in Theros. Your story does not necessarily end when you die, which is a ton of fun, right? Like, we've all had at least one opportunity to run or play in a game where all of your characters die in the very first session, and that's what kicks off the campaign. And this is just kind of built into it, right? You could easily have like, oh, well, you were all just villagers on a boat, and then the Kraken ate you, and now you're adventuring in the afterlives, but you've all been blessed by these gods for a purpose in the afterlife. And then, and it opens up this whole new series of adventures. So
maybe you fulfill that and you're allowed to come back. It's great.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, looking at chapter 3, it covers the basics of the world. So, you're going to get your information like government, trade, currency, the calendar, things like that. Your basics of how to sort this out. And then it has some stuff about the various cities,
right?
Or polis. And
right.
And it's cool. Like I love whenever you have these polis or these things, and you see things like, for example, Akros, which is the first one, and I like using the first ones as examples for these. Flame Speakers, right? They're a prominent spellcasting group, and are reclusive priests of Perforus who revere nature spirits and inhabit fiery rifts in the mountains. Right? It gives you that's a plot hook right there. That's a way to get your players involved. So
I'll also assume that's a magic card.
Probably.
I'm sure Akros Flame Speaker is.
It definitely sounds like a magic card.
Yeah, this is really cool. Akros is certainly Sparta. That's got the whole vibe. Everyone's a warrior. We also have Miletus, which is certainly Athens, which is cool. And then we have Satessa, totally different. I don't know what this is. But it's this city where, for the most part, it's only filled with women. Men grow up and they kind of leave the city, maybe on the outskirts. And they welcome children. Any kind of orphan children can come here, and they're raised and they can do anything. And there's a whole big deal about these little bears and how they're free to roam through the entire city, like indulging their curiosity, learning anything they want, and then growing up to support the city.
Yeah, I wonder if some of that is tied into the Amazons, right? Thinking about Themyscira, that type of stuff. And if there's some connection there, I don't know about the children thing, but maybe that's just like they decided to take the Amazon idea and twist it around a little bit, and create an opportunity for more stories, right? Because sure, there's stories involved with Themyscira, but a place where all the males are kicked out once they hit a certain age, and that creates a very different interesting story than the island of only women warriors, which is also interesting, but different stories, right? So.
Yeah, and in this one specifically, like the sea is left for the Tritons. So I think drawing humanity, into these core 3 cities is kind of a big part of their deal.
Yeah.
And then of course all the other realms. We've got our Minotaur realm, we have our Leonin realm, all around.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. Chapter 4 is creating Theros adventures. So this one goes into a lot of really cool things. One thing that really stood out to me is this first chunk. It's called Champions and Quests, and it talks about as a champion, you may or may not get quests from the gods. You have a choice once you get those quests, right? You have a choice. You can go with it, or you could decline that quest and suffer the consequences. And it gives a list of some of the consequences that that it's talking about, and it's a fun idea where like, oh hey, you're walking down the street, and then all of a sudden so and so walks up to you and says, by the way, I want you to go do this. It's like, okay, or I'm out, So
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
like if a god walked up to an iconoclast, right, someone who doesn't want to give them any more power and says, hey, go do this for me. Oh, you're not going to do this? Well, guess what might happen to you now?
Right. And I love it because these things are out of our Greek myths. Like, Odysseus starts trying to sail back home, but no, the winds blow him here, there, on all these quests, and that's exactly what can happen here. Like, I think it's great.
So cool.
And of course, they do stop, and I was mentioning this earlier, two crucial principles that should guide your use of divine involvement in the campaign is don't eliminate character choice completely.
Right.
Like, and don't eliminate risk and danger, because that's the other thing that can happen here is as your champions, your fated champions of these deities, are you allowed to die? Like, could Hercules have died? No. So balancing those two, I think, is going to make this really tough. But if players buy into this campaign idea, I think that'd be really fun.
Yeah, and then and this is where we get into also the omens. That's kind of under the communication section, and they have like 2 pages of omen ideas on these charts, and it's fantastic. And in some of these can be used for different spells. Like if someone casts augury, you have the weir or woe. You can look through some of these and go, okay, well they cast augury on that, so let's see. You see birds fly in parallel rows like marching armies. Bam, bam. What is that? Weal or woe?
And then for some deities, that's good, and for some, it's bad.
Exactly.
Like who's sent that omen?
Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So good, so good, so fun.
Yeah, and then we get this deep section depicting any of the deities and adventuring with them. So what kind of quests would they send you on? What kind of ways could they act villainous towards you? Who are their monsters? What are their schemes? And then, as most of these books do, they have a map that you could use in an adventure with them, which is very cool.
Yeah, I really like this section because it creates an interesting way to involve your characters in stories. It creates stories, right? Looking at Ephra, right? You could say, okay, well, so the quests Ephra will send the adventurers on are things like outs the corrupt leader of a town or city. Oh, well, and that ties into one of Alpha's schemes. Alpha is attempting to strip Phoenix of his stolen divinity, outraged by his influence over criminals. So maybe that corrupt leader maybe is a follower of so and so, and
Right.
And then if you deny her quest, well, all of a sudden you have this whole section on here's Ephra as a campaign villain. So
yeah,
it's really cool. I really like that a lot.
And it's lengthy. There's a lot to this. Like, this is a major part of this book.
Yeah, between that and the deities, that's most of the book, right? That's because it's such an important part of this kind of campaign style.
Right, and then after that, we get more rules for sea travel, dealing with mystical islands. If you want to have your Odyssey, underwater adventures, who's on these islands. It's a really cool section because, again, that's not something that we are very good at as dungeon mastering. The water is scary because that's where characters can't do anything. So we just avoid it.
Yeah, and, in the last... Well, the section that's kind of my favorite, and we mentioned this a little bit, is the underworld adventures, and it talks a little bit about what it's like. There's a section that's like journey into death, right? Like what do you do? It talks about the denizens of the underworld and trying to find ways of escaping, and it's you could follow the path of Phoenix, or you could try to find some other way. So it's so cool.
Yeah,
so cool.
I love it. There's a short adventure. I've read through it. It's a short adventure.
It is.
It's not bad. It introduces the world.
I would imagine probably at my table it would take about 3 hours to play through. And I think that's solid. That's a great introduction. So we're going to dive into the next chapter is chapter 5, talking about the various treasures. There's some really cool magic items in here. And one of them I want to talk about real quick is the Pyxis of Pandemonium. I really like this because not only does it provide some bonuses and some value to characters. So you open it during a short rest, and that creature gains the effect of Bless spell until they finish a short long rest. And they gain these until and then the thing vanishes and whatever, right? Regardless. But the cool thing that I really like about this is it also has a curse tied into it, right? You get this benefit, but you also get this curse. And it's so fun. It's fun to have really valuable magic items with a curse that you know about, and you're going to have to deal with every time you use it.
Right? So I love this because cursed items are... I hate giving out cursed items because it's just me being mean to someone. Right. That's it. But this one has a benefit, and now it's like, it's up to me as a player to decide if I want to use it or not.
Exactly. I love the idea of risk versus reward, right? And one of the weapons that I gave to a player, I gave a different variation, but if you look in, I think it's in the DMG, it's the Gambler's Blade. And the Gambler's Blade, you can get, you just choose at sunrise, is it +1, +2, or +3, right? So clearly you'd want to choose +3. Well, on the flip side, your death saves are -1, -2, -3, right? So if you go at +3, you're automatically -3 to your death saves. So it's just kind of fun, right? It's a fun mechanic to force those choices upon players. It's like, what is the level of risk I'm willing to take to get this benefit?
Here is my only negative think about this entire book. Are you ready? It's on page 199, and it is a bident, which is a trident with only 2 lines. And I'm mad that I learned that word exists. But I also went back and looked at Greek mythology, and apparently Poseidon has a trident, and Hades uses the bident.
Oh.
I even hate saying it. And then Zeus has the lightning bolt, which is like a one-time... I don't know.
Bident. It's like the bidet of weapons.
I just hate it.
But on the flip side, I will say that this is also one of my favorite parts of the book, in that I love the artifacts of the gods, and that's what starts on page 198, is these very special magic items, like Akamon, Hammer of Perforus. Yeah, we'll go with that. And the interesting things is it gives you more and interesting powers as you gain more deity or more piety with that deity. And I think that's cool. I like the idea of magic items that grow with the players, and I've instituted that at my home game, and now it's really cool to see it in print in a 5e book, right? I hope this means we'll see more of it. I'm a little disappointed there's not one for every god, but I mean, limited space, lots of gods.
Sure. And maybe not all the deities have a special weapon in particular that you might want to borrow for a little bit.
Oh, a unident or just a dent.
Just a unident. Oh.
I'm gonna create a spear wielder, and he's gonna refer to him as his dents. His name's gonna be Arthur.
Tossing my dents.
All right. Chapter 6, Friends and Foes. This is going into talking about some of the classic monsters and how they're used in Theros. One of the interesting things for me was dragons. There's only blue and red dragons. That's it. And they are essentially just rage machines. That's what dragons are.
Oh, yeah.
They're brutish tyrants that leave devastation in their wake. They're not... Ooh, monodent. I like monodent.
Oh, monodent.
That sounds like a toothpaste.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so your fighter can start with a small handful of 5 monodents.
Yeah. And as you level, you eventually get bidents and then tridents.
Oh.
And then quadrants.
Amazing.
Roman bidents, which were kind of like double-bladed hoes. Also an agricultural tool. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I mean, fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know that we have had some of those at home, actually. Although, I think most of ours were pitchforks. 4 times. Four times.
Fordents.
Fordents.
I like quadrants.
Quadrants.
Yeah. So it also talks a little bit about some of the others like Sphinx is in here, Unicorn is in here talking about these, and then of course we have a batch of new beasts, including the Anvil Rots, which I think is fun, like the Anvil Rot Raptor and the Gold Forged Sentinel, things like that. The Burnished Heart. These monsters are, some of them are really kind of cool, but some of them are just like, oh my god, that's real creepy. Like the Cerebi, they have the two-headed Cerebus, which is already like this creepy two-headed wolf thing. But then there's the Underworld Cerebus, which is like this three-headed. Each head has like 40-something eyes, and they're just really gross looking, and it's pretty sweet.
I sent one of these two-headed Cerberi after someone recently, and it was a ton of fun. It was a great fight. Yeah. They were not expecting it to breathe out its breath weapon of spoiler territory.
Speaking of spoilers, let's one fun thing that now you can do is I love the Chimera tables, right?
Oh yeah,
right? It's you can customize your Chimera. So Chimera, three-headed creature, typically in D&D, one head's typically a dragon, one head's a goat, and one head's a wolf, I think, or one head's a lion or something. I don't know. I can't remember.
I'll believe
but
you.
It doesn't matter because now what you can do is you can customize your Chimera with a different body composition, a different head, and 3 different head, compositions, right? And that's going to talk about your breath attack, your tail attack, your head attacks. So cool.
I love this, just because it's all about variety, and my players can't predict exactly what's going to happen, which is always a benefit. I mean, you're already using stuff out of a book that they may not have access to fully, but that's good.
Yeah,
I love it.
So one more monster that I really want to talk about really quick is the Colossus of Akros. Now, we have seen something similar to this before in that we have seen the walking statues of Waterdeep in Dragon Heist. And if you were to take a Colossus of Akros and you were to place it like 15 feet away from a walking statue of Waterdeep and you were to have them fight, by the end of it, both of them would probably be dead, but the Colossus of Akros would cause the killing blow that took out the walking slave of Waterdeep, but the walking statue of Waterdeep. Sorry, and then the walking statue of Waterdeep would then fall apart, and then based on his falling apart, would then kill the Colossus of Akros, which is how close they are in stats and abilities and everything. They are so close that I'm pretty sure that that's how that would break down.
Wow, that is a dark moment, but I would be excited to stand well back from that.
Right?
Fight.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, it's just fun because I love the idea of the walking statues of Waterdeep being used in some kind of combat, and now I'm like, oh well, they clearly need a foe to go up against. Well, now I have one, the Colossus of Akros.
Right. I like that. That can be your planeswalker coming into battle here and needs to bring folks from back home.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, that'd be it. And I don't understand the idea behind what the planeswalker thing is, but I love the idea of it, which is it exactly as it sounds like. These are characters that go between different magic planes and affect them. I'm asking you. I don't know what a planeswalker is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going. I was in my head.
Yeah.
A planeswalker is you, the player.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Right, you're the one dealing the cards. You're summoning the monsters and casting the spells.
So, in a D&D sense, it would be you're the player, and maybe you came from Sigil and you found a portal into Theros. So cool. All right.
Right. It ends with a couple mythic monsters, which are pretty incredible.
Yes.
I haven't gotten the chance to dive through them all very well, but tons of layer actions, which is fantastic. I'm a big fan. Mythic encounter ideas. Scary stuff.
Yeah. A chimera is the result of a mage not understanding that what do you get when you cross a goat, a lion, and a dragon was a joke. Thank you, Hudson.
Yeah.
That's so good. These mythic monsters are fantastic. I'm very excited to use one of these at the end of a campaign. They are just that powerful and just that awesome. All right. Well, we went a little over, but let's go ahead and give a very brief wrap-up of what you thought of the book. And talk about if you have anything coming up this week that people should check out.
Well, I really like this book. I think that it succeeds where a number of D&D settings kind of fails, which is they aren't connected to our own experience. You
Mhm.
know, I grew up with Greek mythology, so the things in this book all feel
Yeah.
fine. You know, I'm used to them all. And that's already a big selling point, right? Player's Handbook works because it's Lord of the
Mhm.
Rings, right? If I watch that, I'm good there. Eberron, I got work to do before I can really like dive in, and I love that campaign,
Mhm.
but still.
Yeah.
So for me, that really works. I think the part where I would struggle with this one is D&D has that sense that we can all kind of just like, you know, if we have an adventure where we're just screwing around in town one day, we can have that adventure, we can
Mhm.
have that session. I feel like that would be a little tougher in this world because it does have this like, it's pointing you at all times, like go big, go heroic, go destined,
Yeah.
which is fun,
Mhm.
but it's a specific campaign style.
Yeah, and I agree. It almost feels like a campaign you're going to sit down and be almost doing creature of the week, right? You know,
Yeah.
every session, every level, every adventure, whatever, is going to be part of something epic, or just straight up be something epic. Like, you know,
Yeah.
you should be doing epic things at level 1 already, right?
Yeah.
For me, this book is never a setting that I will run. I
Ah.
don't know that I would ever run even a Greek setting, to be honest. And it's not that it's appealing. It's not that it's not appealing to me. I love grand heroics. I don't like settings built around the gods controlling your fate. So, which is why I would never run it.
Mhm.
However, I feel like there is so many great tools in here. Like I love the way piety works, and that could be totally something you could bring into a Forgotten Realms game. I
Yeah.
love the way, like, you know, the heroes start out with gifts from the gods. I could totally see ways to bring that into an Eberron campaign, right? You know, it
Yep.
doesn't matter where I'm playing. There's great tools and fantastic monsters and cool items and just really a lot of really fun stuff to read and look at in this book.
Mhm.
And I would absolutely recommend everyone should get it. And check it out and add this to your bookshelf to
Yeah.
enhance your other games. But my one complaint, and this is my one complaint with most Wizards books, is that the artists' names for the fantastic art is hidden in the crease of the book for each page, and it's in a light gray font, so it's hard to find. You have to know where to look to find it.
I didn't
That
know.
right. That's my only
Uh,
complaint. I think D&D Beyond does a much better job. They bold the name, they show it right underneath the picture. It's fantastic. I think the print books at least make the name noticeable. Like
Yeah.
sure, put it in the same spot, nice, small, out of the way, but make it noticeable. Like give it a different color, give it some more, give it a dark black color maybe. You know, something that stands out a little bit more, so you know it's there,
Yeah.
but it doesn't detract you from the rest of the fantastic book.
Right.
So
Yeah. Fair enough. Cool. I guess I won't be playing in your Theros campaign, but I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe we'll see if we get a little one shot together or something. It's
yep.
I'm excited about the
I
world,
I
but
I
I don't know if I'll go long
I would
term.
I would absolutely play in it. I would absolutely
Yeah.
play a campaign or a one shot, and I would have a ton of fun. I just
Yeah.
in my head, the way that I create stories and work with my players, it
Yeah.
just doesn't line up.
Yep. Too destined. Too
Yep.
destined. I hear that. Other than that, I mean, this week is my last week of camp, so I'm going to be mostly enjoying that. I mean, we'll be playing Heists and Honey tomorrow night right here. And then I think next weekend I'm going to take a break.
Oh, nice.
This will be, I think this will mark 200 hours of DMing online in the last 2 months. And so I might pause for a moment
Yeah.
and not look at Zoom for a day or so. But the other thing, this actually happened during this stream. Are you ready?
Oh.
This Fiasco second edition, which I've been very, very excited about. I can't wait to dig into that. They've turned it into a very card-based setting.
Oh, cool.
Which is very similar to how we ran Gosh Darn Fiasco for so
Oh,
long.
wow.
So I want to check this out. I can't wait. This is going to be a big deal. It's all sitting here, so we'll talk about that.
So
next week.
I was gonna say perhaps next week we can do like a mini unboxing type of thing, and you could tell me about it.
Absolutely.
I'm super excited to hear about it. Cool. Let's see. And then this week, of course, you'll see me here tomorrow at 6 p.m. for Heist and Honey with Rich and the Double Clicks. It'll be fantastic. It'll be a ton of fun. It'll be a family game night, and I'm super excited about family game night. It's especially in this pandemic, as weird as it is. It's like I am unreasonably excited about family game night. And then other than that, I have my normal DJ streams every every Tuesday and Thursday. My Friday streams can be a little more random, and then I might start doing some more DJ streams throughout the week. Hop onto the Discord, check it out. I will post any of the changes there as far as that goes, and yeah, I think that's really. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else that we would want to talk about before we wrap it up and say we're good to go. So thanks everyone for hanging out, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.